Hi, everybody, and welcome to Clarity Mastermind. This is a recording, a piece that's gonna be recorded on and posted on YouTube, so all of you guys know. Today, I have a very special guest, Brian. And what's special about Brian is several things. Brian was able to have several careers and find his passion and combine it with spiritual work and make a lot of things happen for himself. Let me read Brian's bio before, like you guys all know me here, right? Oh, hi, Gerard. Hi, Alan.
Hi.
So you
Hi.
all guys met me before. Great, perfect. So let me read his bio and then let me add a few things that I think about him. So Brian Kilbaitis, he is certified financial planner in Southern California and has been practiced since 2005. Formerly a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy, leading the bombs disposal team in San Diego. He's passionate about experiencing life as an adventure with like-minded people through offshore sailboating and racing.
You nailed it.
I can read. So, me and Brian met at one of the events that he created. And what I love about Brian, he's really cares about people. He truly cares about people. Gerard, do you mind to mute yourself, because or Alvin, one of you guys are very loud. And so what I love about Brian, he's really giving you all he has. He has a huge heart. And he's truly caring. Like he just truly care about people. Well, let's Brian, giving the floor to Brian.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Veronica, for the opportunity to share myself and to be reconnected with you. It's been several weeks since we talked, so.
Well, actually, that's another piece. That's what I love about people who I worked for. Like, I sent him text yesterday, can you be? And he's like, yeah, can we do next week? I said, well, honestly, my speaker bailed on me again. Who've been with me last week, it's like it's keep happening. And Brian said, no problem, let me see what I can do. In the morning, I had a text, no problem. So I love people who truly, like, when I say he truly cares, he does.
I really appreciate that. I really honor that. And I know what you're up to. You're up to really big things in the world. And I know you can feel the pulse of people. Like today, I have a lot of things on my plate right now, right? And you said earlier today, you said, I sense something is going on with you. Like there's something there and I want to dig into it. And I was just like, we didn't get into it, but yeah, there's definitely something there. And so my goal tonight is to not let that something distract from our conversation, but enhance it potentially. Absolutely. And I want to share something with you guys, if I can, about how Veronica came into my world and how she very expertly and energetically inserted herself into my world, we'll say. So I was at a presentation with a good friend of mine, Carlos Copara, who's a branding and marketing wizard. He's a really neat guy. And there was a presentation and I was speaking to some talking points on a PowerPoint and really focusing on just like getting the bullet points, everything like perfect, the message, everything had to be perfect. And when I got done, I felt really good about myself, like, oh, I nailed that presentation. And I didn't realize I had a blind spot. And the blind spot, I think, was not knowing if I was truly connecting with my audience as a group, right? So Veronica had approached me. We were in the bar having just drinks, afterwards decompressing. And Veronica says to me, Brian, were you married before? And I didn't know if she was hitting on me or what. I was kind of like, whoa, that's an interesting question, right? Like, where's that coming from? And I said, well, yeah, I was divorced in 2015, you know? And I just said that. And Veronica said something like, And she got really serious with me. Like, she looked at me in my eye sockets and basically said, your ex is still here. Like, she's still in your presence, and I want to work with you. And I was speechless. I looked at Carlos, who was standing right next to her, who was also a coaching client for Veronica. And he just shook his head like this, like, yeah, she knows what she's talking about. You should go consult with her and see what that's all about. And I went, okay. And then I like put Veronica through 3 more meetings, non-paid for her, to really provoke her, to prove to me that she could actually help me transition from this energy of a very traumatic life event and actually be able to find my voice, not only just one-on-one with people, but if I'm going to be in front of a group, right? So that's how we got connected. And I went through 3 months of, call it therapy, call it coaching, call it masterminding. I don't know what you call it, but there were a lot of blind spots. There were many things that Veronica was able to identify in me and help me transition, reframe, tap into a higher being in myself. So thank you for that, Veronica.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And actually, we remember different way. I actually approached you way before the bar and talked to you. In the bar, I didn't ask those questions.
That's all I remember, because that was the one that just triggered me. Like. I
think in the bar, I just talk a little bit more. And for all of you, you guys don't know me very well. I don't drink. So when I go to the bar and Brian buys something to himself, you have to understand that I drink ginger ale in a wine glass. So I look like I drink, but I don't. So I'm very sober.
Very sneaky, very sneaky.
And I'm very open about it. And it's so funny because I do it so openly. I've seen so many times, because like people, like when bartender pouring on me stuff, and they're like, and people like, what are you drinking? I said, ginger ale, would you like some?
It's great. So
yeah.
I would love to kind of hear who is on the call and where they live, and where they're at in life and business, and what they're looking for. And hopefully my journey, my story can help put that in a new perspective for people. Maybe I have no idea who's on the call. I just met Jeremiah, who is an Army vet. So I'm like, yeah, another military veteran is awesome. So
Jeremiah, let's start with you. And so here's one thing that I should start doing. So today's topic is clarity and finance. So Brian is really good with financial advising, and he has a lot of knowledge to share. And so for all of you who have any questions, that will be the questions that you could ask later. And usually, I don't remember, Brian, if I shared it with you on the phone call. Usually when it comes to questions, both of us are answers from different perspectives. So
yeah, that's good.
Oh, hi, Jules. Love you, Jules. Go ahead, Jeremiah. Start.
All right. Well, I'm Jeremiah Knight. I go around believing in people's dreams through this cell phone, and I'm a corrections officer here in Orange Beach, Alabama.
Wow.
Yeah, I try to bring hope to the hopeless, and it's kind of counterintuitive if you think about it, because you're sticking bad people in a box with other bad people with no incentive to change. So,
wow.
We're really just putting them into like a high class timeout. That's the truth. I mean, we do nothing to make them want to change, except because they build a whole culture around that, where they just want to stay in that box, and they build their lives around coming back to that box. It's the weirdest thing, because I grew up in a farming community where, you go and work yourself to death for the bank, really, because it's not owned by the farmer. And you build a family to, I don't know, substantiate that, to keep that going. And then I get placed in in a job like this, where the morals are upside down, and the life is completely different.
Wow.
Anyway, sorry, that's me.
Well, I just want to share, Jeremiah, you have really great energy, and I can see you're a really positive guy, and you've been through a lot with the Army and stuff. So there's the discipline, but there's also that teddy bear kind of brotherhood, big brother kind of thing that I see, that hopefully there's a couple guys every day or every week that you reach in the prison that just like, they see light at the end of the tunnel now. They see here's a guy who cares about me, perhaps.
Yeah, one would hope.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Oh, I'm also a Christian fantasy author. Yeah, I did this book right here. It's
wow.
This is the first printing of it.
Oh, congratulations.
There was a lot of editing that needed to take place, and a friend of mine, Patty Sadler, had a publishing company, and she said, "Hey, I'll publish your book." I said, "I don't know. I'm doing pretty good self-publishing." Which, what happened?
There you go. You're good.
I've got 20% battery. Everyone now knows I've got 20% battery. But
That's
anyway,
awesome.
so the second edition should be coming out, I think, next week. But wait a minute, I don't even know if I'm supposed to say that.
Perfect.
We won't say anything.
I don't know.
Okay, let's make it a little bit shorter introductions because it's a lot of people on the line, so we're not gonna get anywhere this way. So Jenny.
Okay, I am Jeannie Saunders, and Jeremiah, I am really good friends with Patty as well. She lives here in Utah with me, at least part-time. But so you just joined my group, Dream Believers Guided Imagery, and you shared your post about your book, so I think that's pretty cool. But I'm an author as well, so that excited me because I write a lot of fiction, romance novels, mystery type fiction, which is kind of fun. But I'm also a poet, and I'm a musician, and actually music is my passion. I'm a songwriter, so I write music for entrepreneurs or business people, or just for fun. I've written a lot of songs for friends or for children, and for my church and my community. And I'm also a healer. I do Reiki and foot zoning. So, and I do guided imagery as well. So I like to do, meditation is something that's really helped me. And so I learned guided imagery. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I went through a divorce in 2015 as well. And I know how traumatic it can be. And so guided imagery is something that really helped me through that, because it really helped calm me and give me some peace that I really needed.
I'm so sorry.
So I learned how to do it. Pardon?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, who would divorce you?
That is so nice of you. I like you.
I'm serious.
But I feel humble. I feel humbled so far. We're 2 introductions in, and I'm over here in California bowing down right now because you guys are awesome.
Oh, that's nice of you. Thank you.
Alvin, you're next.
Am I next? Oh. I'm driving back from Las Vegas and I'm almost home. So, my name is Alvin Acosta. I'm a content creator, videographer, photographer, and digital marketer. I'm not sure what to take naps and make sandwiches. I don't know.
Perfect. Thank you, Alvin, so much. I love Alvin. Alvin always was short to the point.
He does great work. Alvin, you do great work. Shameless plug for Alvin.
Gerard, are you ready? Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Gerard. I've been kind of following Veronica for quite some time now. What do I do? I help people restore their credit and kind of educate them about, not trying to knock their 9 to 5. It's just more of, there's more out there, and it's not just, going to be a slave for somebody else. When everybody has their own ideas and dreams, and trying to let them know that, hey, things can happen. Dreams can happen if you take a step. So.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because there's a kind of interview. Your name is Brian, and you were mentioning Carlos, and that's all in my name, my full name. That's included in my full name. So I was like, "What's going on?" I hear my name, my mom's maiden name, It says right here, it says Carlos. So when you guys were mentioning Carlos and Brian, I'm like, what? What's going on? Why do I hear my
There you
name?
go.
So I was like, wow, is it really meant to happen today that I need to hear this? Because, you know, you were talking about divorce and, you know, past relationships. So it was kind of getting into me. So I was like, oh, maybe Veronica has psychic powers.
Veronica
awesome.
does have psychic powers, we know that.
Like, oh, how does she know that I was kind of dealing with this stuff right now, you know?
I
great.
don't. I just surrender to God. God knows. I'm just a channel here.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Jules, do you have a second?
Yeah. Just popped in a few minutes late. Hi, everybody.
Some
Hi.
of you met Jules last week as a speaker, so.
The thrown in there speaker.
Jules showed up on the line. I said, I don't have a speaker. Would you like to be one? And she's like, yeah. So you're in a much better shape.
Impromptu speaking. So my name is Jules, and I have a business called Jules Business Management. I help people manage their business. I help them get from point A to point B. That's my short and sweet answer.
That's awesome.
Jules helping to manage my business, and she's asking.
That's
Oh,
great.
thank you.
Oh, I need to hook up with you, Miss Jules.
Yeah. Send me a message. We'll talk.
Yes, ma'am.
Brian, now you're ready.
We're ready? Great. Well, I thought I would start with an experience that just happened this past, I believe it was November. And it was about a month after I started working with Veronica. And before I tell you the story, my industry, the financial services industry, has done a really good job of teaching financial advisors, agents, things like that, how to be smart and how to be smarter than the next guy, right? To the point where your math, like you can just prove your math up, down, left, right. Your math is better than the next guy's, and therefore these people are just going to bow down and open their pocketbooks and give you all their money, and they're just going to be your clients for life, and they're going to love you, right? So I was kind of raised and groomed in that environment to always be smarter than, better than, have better products, et cetera, and clients will be happy. And after a while, after beating myself up in the industry for many years, I started to realize that many of the people I come across don't really care as much about the details of a particular product, the technical stuff, and like they expect you to have good products. That's minimally expected anyway. So if we're spending all of this time on the superiority of our product or how smart we are, I believe we're completely missing the point. And that's who I've been in my own practice for many years, is got to be the smart guy, got to be, literally looking for opportunities to prove the other person wrong. And I was golfing a few months back, I think it was November. It was literally 1 month after working with Veronica. I found myself on a very nice golf course with another player who's a big deal up in Orange County. He's a real estate commercial broker, doing really, really well. And we had that proverbial, hey, what do you do? What do you do thing come up, right? Like everyone dreams for that question if they're in front of a good prospect. And I just said, I'm an investor coach. I help people align their values, their strongest values, with their investment strategy and execute on them. That's what I do. And just shut up. And that's where I've transitioned my life to, my practice, my work. And that opened up a whole new conversation with this guy, which led to 2 or 3 meetings after the fact, which led to me actually falling on my sword a little bit and telling him some of the financial trauma and emotional trauma that I'd gone through after my divorce and that I'm still dealing with. Like I don't have the perfect balance sheet. I know guys in my business and girls in my business whose balance sheets are like, they're multi-millionaires. And I told this guy, I am not that guy. I work just as hard as you or anyone else to save for my future, to manage my obligations, to pay down debts, all this. And he actually said to me, he goes, he said, I really appreciate your honesty, and no one has ever talked to me that way who's tried to manage my money. And I said, got it. And so what's next? He's like, how fast can I transfer my money over to your platform? And I was a little shocked by that I actually just showed up being vulnerable and authentic about, hey, my life's not perfect. That's why I get coaching with people like Veronica. That's why I go to Landmark Education. That's why I'm in like 2 different study groups at work. All these different things I jump into is because I know I have a lot of growth left in me, right? Long story short, this individual now is a wonderful man, is one of my best clients. And it wasn't a result of me trying to prove how smart I was or how great my investments are. It was just being authentic with the guy. And we go golfing like every chance we get. We're going back out in 2 weeks. So who knows what other relationships will come from that. But I want to thank Veronica for helping me get past, these old mental blocks that I had and just show up being me. That was huge. So I don't know if that helps people in where they're at in their business or life, but and I'd be happy to field any questions about that experience if there's any that come up at this point.
Thank you so much, Brian. You're being so, so kind. Why don't we talk for a few minutes about clarity, finance, and investing? What can you share about that?
So I think the biggest thing there about clarity and finance is if you think about all the messaging we get through media. I'll give you an example. BMW, great company, great cars. It wasn't too long ago they had a advertisement on TV that said the whole message was you deserve, you deserve, you deserve. And there was a picture of this beautiful 5 Series or 7 Series BMW. Some of these cars today cost $100,000. They're not cheap cars. I've worked with many people who have these toys and ultimately are not really fulfilled in life. They were chasing these dreams, right? And they found that maybe these expensive toys they purchased are now like a mortgage and are in conflict with their values. So just like with this individual that I was working with, I met golfing, before just transferring all the money over and executing on investments, I said, why don't we take some time to really distinguish what is most important to you as a parent, as a business partner, as a husband, as a wife, you name it. Like, let's actually dive into your top values. There's going to be 2 or 3. There's going to be one value that covers your whole life, the reason why you go to work, the reason why you take care of your kids, everything. Once we know what that value is, your investment strategies and everything else you do must align to that. And that's one of those things where, like, if someone violates that value in your life, you're like really threatened. That's like back off. Do not violate that value, right? For me personally, when I went through the education myself, I got freedom. Freedom came up, and that was freedom from old negative thoughts through my divorce. It was responsibility. This is an interesting one. This may not sound exciting or exotic, but responsibility to me is important because I've been surrounded by people that make a lot of money in the business, and I've sort of not been responsible for where I was at in the business, especially in my former relationship. And now I am, and Veronica helped me see that. So responsibility and freedom of negative self-talk, things like that. The other one that's always been there is adventure. Veronica mentioned that sailboat racing is part of my passion. You guys might relate with this, but many of the investors that I work with who are in their late 30s, early 40s, and they've had children, many of them don't do the things they used to do that they loved. They're quote unquote sacrificing for the family or for what have you. I got it, it's great, but my stand is, hey, if there's a way that we can have you doing the things that you love now, it doesn't necessarily cost a lot of money, right? I don't own a 50-foot race boat, but I got good at sailing them, so I get invited out all the time to go race on big race boats. These rich folks own these boats. I don't know what everyone likes to do with their free time on this call, but if you're not doing the things that you love to do right now, I would really take a look at that and try to be in a community that allows you to engage in those things. Don't lose sight of what drives your passion. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, that was good.
It absolutely does.
Good.
What are major mistakes people do when it comes to managing their money? What are major mistakes that people do?
I think to be really general here, and each case is different. I think one of the biggest ones is to be focusing on the negative aspects of money. When I say negative, I mean the things that tend to drag us down, like debt. And what I see happening often is people will focus on paying off a debt, whether it's a student loan or a mortgage or a credit card or anything that has an interest rate that's weighing on us. And I'm not saying it's good to carry interest like that. It's obviously not a great thing. But we want to, like flexing a muscle, we always want to be saving for the future. Even if that means a little bit of money is not going to pay down that debt, we always want to be flexing the saving for the future muscle. Because 9 times out of 10, you can out earn the interest rate you're paying on a student loan debt or a credit card. If you do it right, you can earn more interest down the road and ultimately pay off that debt. So that's huge. I think we should all take stock of what we're carrying as debt. And if we're not saving for the future, I tell investors 10 to 15% minimally. If you have the means, 15 to 20% of your taxable income. So if somebody's taxable income is $100,000 a year, they want to be saving minimally $10,000 to $15,000 a year. And if they can do $20,000 a year, that will assure them of a dignified retirement whenever that's going to be, 65, 67, 69. That math plays out every time. Every single time. But what happens is a lot of people get stuck in the lifestyle that they're in. And oh my God, I was meeting with a dentist in Orange County who was 71, 72, not too long ago. And they had the big house on the hill. It was a husband and wife team. And they said they were scared to death to retire, like scared to death to retire. And this guy's working in his dental practice. He's not in the best shape. He's 71 years old. And it's because they had acquired all these toys and all these liabilities that if they knew that if they sold the practice and they're not getting the valuations they expected to get them on at this point, they would take a significant reduction in lifestyle. Their cash flow was going to just hit the bottom. Saving 15 to 20% consistently all these years, and they weren't, because I looked at their numbers, they wouldn't be in this fear of how do I retire?
I love that. Thank you.
Welcome.
What is number one advice you give to your clients?
Number one advice I give to clients is really look at what your greatest asset is, the greatest financial asset you have on your whole balance sheet. And I'll ask many investors, that question, what do you think your greatest asset is? And I'll just be quiet. And they'll think about it. And the answers that I get typically are my home, especially if you live in California. It's easy to look at your home as this, major asset, right? Which is fine. For some people say my 401k, the longer they've been in the workforce, their retirement plan, they might consider their greatest asset. But if we just stop for a second and think about what created all that, where did all that come from, right? And if you stopped working today because you couldn't work, who's going to pay that mortgage, right? It boils down to the human, like the producer in all of us is really our greatest asset. And as we go through life and build success, if we're not careful, we become a target to our own ignorance or to predators. You'd be surprised how many busy entrepreneurs, small business owners I've worked with who have been so busy for the past 5 or 10 years working on their business. Now they're making 6 or 7 figures a year. And I do something like look at their auto policy or their home policy, their home insurance, and notice they have the state minimums for liability protection, maybe $50,000 of liability protection. They're driving a $100,000 car. They have $1 million home. And I find it interesting that some agent who works at some property and casualty shop hasn't said, hey, by the way, Joe, you're making $1 million a year. If you have a bad day on the freeway and you get sued, we're only going to give the other party $50,000. Where's the rest of the money going to come from? That happens so much. And it's such a cheap fix to call your agent and make sure you have the right amount of liability protection, because you are the asset. And if you don't have the assets on your balance sheet to satisfy that lawsuit, they're going to try to garnish your wages, right? So I take a little bit of time. I'm not licensed in property and casualty, but I know low liability limits when I see them. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know you can have $1 million of coverage for like $200 a year as an umbrella policy. and someone walking around with $50,000 of coverage, that's a major mistake. And the other thing that goes with that, this is really important. Remember, my life is about living it as an adventure. If I'm out on someone's race boat and they give me the wheel and say, Brian, drive, and I have a collision with another boat at the start of a race, right? That would be a horrible day for me. However, if that boat owner is going to sue me, I have a fat liability policy to protect me. So when I'm in the zone, when I'm living life as an adventure, or I hit a golf ball off the tee box and it kind of leaks off to the right, like towards someone's house. Not that that's ever happened before, guys. I've never hit in a house. I will shut up because I just joked. That was a bad joke. It happens. Even the pros, have a bad day on the tee box. I don't want to be thinking about, am I going to hurt somebody? I don't want to hurt anyone. But if I'm going to get sued, I'm not going to ruin my life's work and have everything be sold off to satisfy a lawsuit. That's unacceptable. So those are just basic things. Save enough, protect yourself. The rest of it is a little bit more, technical, but those are the basics.
Thank you. What are the books that you suggest for people to read? What are the free books that change your life?
That's awesome. Good question. One of the ones that really, really got me thinking was just last year. In fact, I'm just going to put a little tick mark on my paper so I don't forget that there's 3 here. There's an author named Steve Zaffron with a Z, Z-A-F-F-R-O-N. He is the CEO of a company called the Vanto Group. And they go into big corporations like Mercedes-Benz. I can't name some of the other clients, but they've worked some major companies with their executive teams on helping them create new futures for their companies. His book is called The 3 Laws of Performance. And it's a long read. It's very in-depth. It's case studies on a lot of different companies and nonprofit, and non-governmental organizations that they've worked with around the world. And after reading that last year, it completely, I literally finished that book right before I started working with Veronica. So I feel like that book had prepared me to listen to somebody like Veronica. Before, I don't know if I would have been able to open up to you, Veronica, like as a conversation. I've been like, oh yeah, you're pretty good at what you do. You got any tips for me, right? Like tips and tricks. But I think that book sort of greased the skids for me to really be a good student for you, right? So the 3 Laws of Performance. Another one that I read years and years and years ago, which just got me thinking about money in general. And I honestly think it was Robert Kiyosaki's best book. He's written many, but his original book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has always resonated with me because I was in that same conversation with my dad growing up. Do what you love and the money will follow. I don't necessarily think that's the right advice for everybody, because sometimes going out and producing revenue in a business so you can go live the life that you like, it's not always pretty. Sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do, like pick up the damn phone and make a call. But that book did a really good job of distinguishing a way to look at an asset versus a liability. And I think that we as consumers have been conditioned to buy liabilities and think that they're assets. Like the BMW, like the 7 Series BMW, right? Even the home that we live in. Yeah, it could appreciate, it probably will appreciate, but even if it's paid off, is it truly an asset? We still have property taxes, we still have insurance, we still have maintenance and upkeep. We could be bleeding out, $5,000 a year just on that. So it's a way to reframe money. I really like that. In the third book, actually, I think you guys might like, if you guys are thinking about marketing, was called Cracking the Icon Code by an author named David Fagan, F-A-G-G-A-N. In fact, I had met Carlos at an event where Carlos was asked to introduce himself a little bit before David Fagan came up on the stage. And David Fagan actually got me to think about actually having an organic website and a blog and things that I could generate, that I have the power to generate, which before I didn't even really think about. I was under the perception that, my compliance department's not going to allow that. I can't really be self-expressed. I'm just going to keep doing my thing and hope nobody looks at my website. And now that I realize all that stuff is available to me, that book really helped me rethink marketing. And it was a great read. So those are the 3 books I would recommend.
Me and Jenny, we met at David Fagan event, so yeah.
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 Any questions on those books, guys? Anything at all?
David gave me a copy of that book, so I let Patty borrow it, but I need to get it back and
gotta
read
get it
it.
back. Yeah. Oh, and the other good thing about that book is each chapter is just the right length for, like, you know, a guy goes to the bathroom for 5-10 minutes, like they're short little sweet, you know, boom, 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 done, like that. Like, not these really long epic chapters. Or you take a couple of concepts, highlight them, put it down, pick it back up the next day. I love that book because it was easy for me to stay focused on one thing for a short period of time.
Now I'll open the floor to you guys. Would you guys have any questions to Brian? Yes, no?
Maybe I'll
Anything?
give him a call
Fair
later.
game.
Sorry.
Fair game, guys. Anything you got?
Alvin,
Go
do you
ahead.
have a question?
Oh, no, I'll probably give him a call later.
Got me on speed dial.
Alvin, you showed up at this one time when you know a speaker. You don't know all my speakers, but today you do.
Oh, it's just bad timing. I was free the whole day because I was driving. Otherwise, I'd be working somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. It's perfect timing for us. Anybody has a question, or I can ask Brian more questions? But I know usually you guys have tons of questions. Yes, no? Jeremiah, I know you always have questions. Do you have any?
Jeremiah might have gotten his phone was low on battery.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've actually got 7%. I'm keeping an eye on it. But like, what transitioned you from the military into accounting? Were you did you do finances in the Navy?
No, I was completely different career track. It was bomb disposal, Navy diver.
Snap! That's awesome.
Yeah. So I was disarming, you know, ordnance underwater, on the land, you name it. And my ex-wife at the time, who was in the business of financial advising, had recruited me into the business. And at the time, I'd seen such a huge opportunity to be part of her team that I actually just walked away. I just walked away from that whole military. I had 12 years in, and I said, I will give it up. And she was having a rough time with the idea of deployments and all the things that go with that, with me being gone. So I had to make a tough decision. And at times I find myself regretting having left that tribe, that whole brotherhood. And yet I can't dwell on it. It is what it is. I still have all my fingers. You know, I didn't get shot. So, you know, I mean, it is what it is. And that experience, though, I rely on it a lot, just dealing with life.
Hey, at least you get to keep your hair. Mine does beard.
Actually, oh, go ahead, Jeremy. Oh. Sorry.
No, go ahead, brother.
I was going to say that the thing that the overlap, I think, that you might be looking for there, that to me is meaningful, is before going downrange to look at a piece of ordnance that someone's called in. You know, I've got a bomb in my backyard or whatever. You know, in the movies, someone just runs downrange in a bomb suit and starts cutting wires, right? In reality, what happens is you actually come up with an action plan. You think about how are we getting out of this situation if things go wrong, right? Who's on our team? What direction is the wind blowing? What are all the tools we have? Are there any threats in the area? Like, there's so much more that goes into doing that type of job as opposed to just showing up and cutting wires or digging holes. And I think that might be another thing that to address Veronica's question about finance, I think, is before rushing and buying products and thinking we're fixing our issues, is taking a strategic look at how we want to handle our money as a family or as a business, and looking at what all the potential threats are with different products. How are we going to get out of them if we don't want to keep them anymore? Things like that. Those are important questions. And I think that experience from the Navy had helped me think about money in those terms. And it looks like you're muted out, Jeremiah.
Sorry about that. I'm trying to find we have a couple different chargers throughout the house. And I don't know where the other one is. But hey, thank you for your service, man. You did a lot more than I did. and I greatly appreciate your impact on all of these people tonight.
Oh, thank you, Jeremiah. Sure appreciate it.
Just in case my phone dies.
Yep. You'll find one. There was a question that had popped up from Gerard, or who was it? I'm sorry.
So
Yeah,
he
it was Gerard.
let me read the question. So he says, how do you, so sorry guys, I'm eating dinner, but I am listening. My question is, how do you advise someone that long-term 9 to 5 is not the only way up and to open up their ideas? So how do you advise someone that long-term 9 to 5 is not, that long-term 9 to 5 is not the only way up,
Mm-hmm.
and how you open them to other ideas?
So are those other ideas going into like an entrepreneurial world, being a business owner? Is that what the thought is there? I'm assuming that's the answer.
Basically, I think, because I've talked to Gerard before all of you guys talk to me in one form or another,
Mm-hmm.
is basically how you, if you have ideas beyond 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
how you help others to see them.
Got it.
Gerard, am I getting it right?
Structurally, I would say that's a great question, Gerard. Structurally, there's things that we're sort of encouraged to do with, you know, like, for instance, saving at work. If you work for a company, we have a 401k typically, some type of deferred compensation type thing. We sock money away into this plan that we could have taken an income today, and we put it in this plan, and then we can't touch it till we're 59 and a half, right? Well, if somebody is thinking about branching off and starting something new, say in the next 6 months or a year, that's an important decision to make. If all of our money, all of our available resources are going into a bucket that we can't touch for 30 years, and if we do touch it, not only do we get taxed, but a 10% penalty, you know, that might not be a wise thing to do. So again, like I said about thinking about, you know, dealing with unexploded ordnance before just running in and digging a hole, cutting wires, trying to, you know, go do that whole thing like on TV. Like, what are the things we can set ourselves up? How can we think ahead 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? Maybe you have equity in the home, you know, talk with a mortgage broker, see if there's a way you can maybe have an equity line of credit on the home. I've actually had success dealing with credit card companies where I will just call and say, hey, look, you know, you've got 15,000 of credit on this line for me. My income went up this year. How much more credit can you give me? And they'll go offline for a minute or two and come back and go, we can bump up your credit to say 22,000 this year. And that's valuable, right? But if you don't ask, you don't get that type of treatment. So I think oftentimes people don't realize there's things they can do right now that don't cost any more money. It's just restructuring what you're doing to help set yourself up to peel away from, say, a 9 to 5. Now, I think Veronica would agree with me, and most of the other guys on this call who are in business, you know, I work many more hours than I ever did at a 9 to 5 job, but I'm focusing on the things that I love to do. The good thing about this experience is doing it on my own terms and when I want to do it, right? So if I want to go take 2 hours off in the afternoon to go meditate, I can go do that. I can schedule my client meetings for 6 p.m. that day or 5 p.m. The other thing I would say on that is community. Your community that you're in is your capacity. So the people that you put in your community, the people you connect with, are so critically important, because what they say matters to you, whether it's true or not. Your brain is going to internalize information, and it could take it. It could be a hostile spouse. It could be a friend from school who is just busting your chops for quitting this great job, right? Like, you're crazy. What are you doing, right? If you know it's the right thing to do and you're going to do it, you don't need to associate with people who are continually undercutting you and tearing you down. So actually, I have something I want to show you guys. Hopefully I can find it. It's just take me just a second. Hold on a second. I think it's right here. I'm doing this for myself right now, and I think everyone should do it, is come up with like a little flow chart of areas in your life that are important to you. Like for me, recreation, hobbies, social activities, business. I have money. I have membership, like being membership to different types of communities or organizations, spirituality and faith. And what I'm doing is in each of these categories, I'm writing down all of the people that I know that I relate with in those different areas of life. And I'm going to take an inventory and really think about, do I feel uplifted when I'm talking with this individual or this individual, or are they sucking energy from me? I'm 46 now. I'm not 26 anymore. I sometimes think I am, but I realize that my time on this earth is finite. And if I've got another 30 years or 40 years, I get to say who's going to be part of that experience. And, I want people on my list who uplift me, help me get to the next phase. So having some type of community network map, I call this a community ecosystem is what I called it. And you can just go onto a Word document and make your own template. But that's the most important thing is the community, because the language that you are engaged in will create your future. In fact, that is the second law of performance in Steve Zaffron's book, is the way in which situations occur to us. It happens in language. It happens in what is spoken, the spoken word. And that's what all I'll say about that.
It's very cool exercise. I like that too. Jenny says she likes that exercise. It's really, really cool.
Awesome.
I want to add to that is that sometimes I know for me, it's usually holidays and birthdays when it's very easy to see who is coming with you and who is not. And life is in seasons. So, people who put you to the certain level might not go with you to the next level. And I think it's the hardest thing sometimes to let things go and move forward. And the same with financial decisions. I think it's the same, some of you know, some of you not. I have 12 years of accounting experience. So when it comes to finance, I know a little bit. I've never been financial advisor. I sold insurances for 3 months. So I know very little, but I know enough dangerous.
Don't worry, Veronica, I'll teach you more.
I do. I coach financial advisors and real estate people all day long, so I know more than I want to know. But what I'm trying to say here, I want to say that the decisions that you used to make financially might change as you progress in life too. And not just with your situations, but how as your spiritual growth changes, your financial decisions changes. I know that for me, for example, now that is much more important of my state of how I feel and be, I might invest in something that allows me to feel differently, where I might not have done those things before. Like you said, you were saying toys. I don't know about toys, but there are certain things, like certain level of makeup or certain things certain smells that I know that they will energetically uplift me. I would do that because that's one of my values.
That's awesome.
Any other questions you guys have?
Can I share one other thing? How many people in the group have children? Like minor children? I know Veronica does. Alvin, you've got a baby, right? Might be off. Okay, Gerard has. Okay.
Yeah, he's for sale.
He's for sale. Hey, I would love to take him to kick a soccer ball for a small fee. I'll do that for you.
Julie has a child also. Gerard has a child. And Jenny,
So-
don't you have a child too or no?
I have 4 children, but they're all grown.
Okay. So this is really important. And I see this is like, the question before was, what are some things what are the biggest mistakes people make? Has nothing to do with investing, but it does have to do with family. And as humans, it's hard for us to acknowledge that someday we're not going to be here. It's not a fun thought to think that someday we're going to be dead, right? And it happens. And for a very small percentage of people, it happens when you least expect it, like tomorrow driving to work, right? Knock on wood. That doesn't happen to any of us here this week. But what I notice where that shows up as a major problem is in the estate plan or lack thereof. And what I notice a lot of times is people don't have any type of instructions for family, for other trustees, for trusted people in the family who could help raise these children. And if there's no estate plan, the state has a plan for you. And in California state, where we live here, I don't think you would like the provisions of them raising your children. But if we don't take the time to establish an estate plan, those other relatives that you leave behind are going to be fighting the state for custody and to prove that they're worthy. And so the other thing that happens with that is even if people do have estate plans, and I'm not an attorney, I can't give legal advice. This is just, I would say as a caveat, if you have this in your legal documents, take them back to your attorney and ask them for help. Can this be upgraded, or can the threat be minimized? Like the threat I see is people will have minor children and their trust will say something like, hey, when the kid is 25 years old, I want a third of the assets to become available to them to dump out at that point. And then again at say 35 and then maybe 40. Obviously no one wants to spoil their children or have them make poor decisions as a youngster with a big pot of money. The challenge with that type of planning is that now if they're dealing with a hostile ex-spouse or some type of lawsuit in their world, now this money is exposed to their creditors, right? I mean, it's great. We want them to benefit from our life's work. But if you force it upon them based on some document your attorney drafted, it might put them in a really rough spot someday. So ask your attorney, how do I set my children up so that they have access to funds if they need it for, say, health, education, maintenance, and support, but it's not forced upon them and exposing them to undue liability, right? So those are some of the little landmines, I'd call them, inside of estate plans that we've noticed. And again, not an attorney, but those are things that do happen, and you have to talk with your attorney to get that stuff figured out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for let us think about things like that. Anybody has a final question for Brian as we are finishing it up?
I got a question. So when you got divorced, you said, so did you have kids at that time? And how did you manage, that transition, not seeing your kids, or I don't know if you're seeing the kids, and also, being apart from them? Like, how do you manage to be more, I guess, more focused?
Gerard, that's a great question. And if I misspoke, the blessing in my situation was we never actually had kids. So we don't have to deal with that after the fact. Okay. I honestly don't know how to answer that because I haven't gone through that experience.
So let me answer that.
Yeah.
I did. I went for that. Would it be okay if I answer that, Gerard?
Yeah. That's where we're here for.
Yeah.
Fine answer.
Thank you for saving me, Veronica.
Well, first of all, the whole point that we both answer the questions from different perspectives. And in this case, like, I'm female, so I divorced when my kids were 4 and 5. And to me, anybody who knew me before I become what I become today, that confident woman who can come to Brian and say, hey, you have to work with me, it wasn't the case in 2012. 2012, I thought I'll be homeless. And even though I wasn't there financially yet. But what I knew for sure, that to me, what was driving me is that I wanted both things. I wanted my children to know their father. So 50-50 was a solution to me. And the other piece is, and California is one of the few states where that's easier to do than other states, from what I've heard from fathers. The other piece of that is I knew that in this 50% of the time they're with me, I can show them the world the way I would never able to do it in a relationship I was in. I was not allowed to be spiritual. I was not allowed to read self-development books. I was making fun of reading self-development books. And having a business from the cell phone was a nonsense. I have a nasty habit of proving people wrong. And doing whatever I'm supposed to do with my life, but doing what I'm doing, I allowed my kids to see what's possible. Is that, Gerard, does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Kind of made more sense. It's just. So
sometimes, sometimes it's better stay together, but sometimes at least the time that you are with these children, you can show them the other side of the world. So my kids, maybe they are running in a conflict because it's black and white, but they decide what do they want.
All right. Thank you.
So my daughter was on a stage at the age of 10, first time speaking, make Brian cry when I saw him. A video was one of those pre-meetings, and and then my 11-year-old, well, he's 12 now, he built computer in 2 days. And so those things, and his father is in computers and he refused to do it for him. So those, well, now, so that's what I'm talking about. So you choose for yourself.
That's awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Brian, for being here. We truly, truly, truly appreciate you.
It was a total pleasure. You guys are great questions, very thoughtful. And Veronica, I really appreciate the chance to share the story, and it's all good. So.
Thank you. Thank you for showing up and helping me out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for all of you to come and watch. And I'm glad that our community is growing and it keeps happening. And as difficult as that for me every week, I'm very, very happy that we are doing it. So looking forward to see you all next week. Have an amazing, amazing day. Bye.
Good night.